We got Smooth Vega from Texas with us today. I feel like it was real important for us to get you on because nobody ever really gives credit, like you said on your Royce interview, like nobody really gives flowers to the people until it's too late. And in this case, I feel like it's important to highlight what you do and people like you do behind the scenes. How do you go from doing shows with Nipsey Hussle to getting Royce the 5'9" to bring you up on stage, to interviewing one of the members from Joe Exotic, and then just doing interviews and linking people up from WWE and WWF. Most people have one market and they stick to it, but you seem to be all over the place and not in a bad way. Like, it seems that everything's working for you.
Yeah, well, I would say that, for me, like, it's all based on what you're passionate about, what you grew up on, what you love, right? So growing up for me, man, like my main passion was always music. It was pro wrestling and it was pro boxing. So, and basketball and baseball as well, but those were the things that I was really passionate about. So once I got into a position where like, it's second nature, for me, like if I know it, I know it. I told the story the other day about how my mom used to own an independent record shop. So I grew up, around mainly like Tex-Mex music, Spanish artists like Selena, Emilio Nevada, La Mafia. I was very familiar with it. I just ran an interview with Selena's brother, A.B. Quintanilla, and we were talking about Tejano music, and we were talking about it. Like, I went back and I heard it, and I was like, wow, like, I'm surprised I know as much as I know about it. But when you know something and you're sound to it, naturally it's easy to kind of connect the dots on everything. So I would say that for me, the journey was simple. I started as a musician. I made up my mind pretty early on. I was pretty young when I first stepped foot into a recording studio at 13, that this is what I wanted to do. The reality of it is that I was self-taught. I didn't have a manager. I learned on the job. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have an OG. So creating music and creating hip-hop music in specific where I'm from, it was a little tough. It was tough in the sense that if you weren't like a gangster, you didn't, glorify that lifestyle, you weren't as embraced or as accepted, and people kind of looked at you like you weren't authentic, even though you were doing something different. And at the time, I was very different. Granted, I was still developing, my skills, but as I got to a point where, I got ahead of the curve, I started doing a lot of social media marketing before it was called social media marketing. I was doing a lot of promotion on the internet. Once I realized, like, okay, you know what, I'm doing what everybody else isn't doing. These guys were really confused on how I was doing it. And when I mean these guys, I meant my colleagues, my peers, and other people in the business were like, what the hell, how's this guy like popping? How's he circulating? And for me, it's kind of like what we're dealing with right now with the quarantine, right? It was like we couldn't leave. I didn't have a car at the time. I didn't have as many resources as everybody else did. So I utilized what was in front of me. I utilized the internet, and I just made the best of it, man. You're talking 2003, 2004. That transcended into me, releasing music. And as I was releasing music, my website had a lot of traffic, but I wasn't getting booked as an artist. I wasn't getting those opportunities. I wasn't getting those looks. And so I made the decision to start promoting my own shows, and the rest is history. Branched off and started doing that. Did it for a few years. I made a lot of money at a really early age. And then from that point forward, I knew it was a matter of time before I did it full time, So I took some time off, and when I came back, I launched my company, Premier Live, and I started routing national tours for artists. And like you mentioned, I worked with Nipsey Hussle, Dave East, A Boogie with the Hoodie, Jordan Lucas, Royce the 5'9", Joe Budden. I mean, the list goes on. Eric B. and Rakim, Ja Rule, Ashanti, Genuine. I just worked with a number of artists. And, whenever you do this line of business, as you know, like, you meet people. And it's really how and what you do with those relationships over the years. And what I was able to do is I was able to just connect the dots. I was able to, like, this is what I love. And, eventually, like you talked about the media stuff. It was weird, man. I think my first itch for anything media related was probably, I had taken some break. I had taken some time off of music after my mom had passed away, bro. And when that happened, I was getting really tired of working a regular job, because I went and I worked a regular job, and I had never really worked a 9 to 5, So I found myself like just dissatisfied, like unfulfilled. And my first real idea of getting into media was radio. I wanted to apply for radio, but I didn't have a background in broadcasting. I had a following as an artist, but they were gonna think that that's what it was all about for me. And it wasn't. And then around 2015, when I started doing my first set of concerts, I started bringing these artists out. I had this guy who I thought was a really, really exceptional talent. This guy was a really strong on-air talent, really strong interviewer. And I said, man, I want you to interview. Not only did I want to run an interview with him as an artist, me as an artist, but I wanted to run interviews with him, like him interview the artist that I was bringing to town. And we were able to do that. And I think pretty instantly I realized, like, this isn't really benefiting me. I'm giving somebody else's platform these interviews, and they're not really redirecting it to us. They're not really shouting out the company. We're not really utilizing the content. So in 2016, I made the decision to launch the first variation of my YouTube channel, which was Premier Live TV, which is an extension of the company. And when I did that, I took a girl that had a really big social media following, and I basically said, I want you to be the host, but I want to produce the show. And what I did was I took a non-natural personality and basically put them in that situation, and I put them in front of national acts. And we ran that play for a few months, and it went well. And before I did that, I actually offered the guy that had been running the interview, I had offered him an opportunity to be the on-air personality, and he declined it because he wanted to continue to brand his name, which I was going to allow him to do, but it just didn't work out. And we ran the interviews for a while. I wasn't feeling it after a while. I didn't like where it was going. I didn't think it was growing. I wasn't necessarily a fan of the interviews or the content.
And this was I don't want to cut you, this was 2016, you said.
Yeah, this is 2016. Because this all kind of bridges into 2020, right?
Yeah.
And so I stopped doing the interviews. 2017, man, I'm just giving interviews left and right to radio, to newspapers. And I got tired of it, man. I got tired of it. By September 2017, I was at a breaking point where I was like, you know what? I'm tired of giving people these interviews. Like I had given the radio station an interview with Bun B, and as you know, man, you give a station an interview, they don't want to shout out the promoter. They don't want to redirect it to the show because we're not running radio ads with them. But yet they're quick to take the interview, and they're not responsible for bringing them in town. We're the ones spending thousands of dollars to get them in town. So I was like, man, I'm done. Like I had given the station an interview, and I still ended up doing a few more situations where I gave a few publications interviews, but I had already said, like, that's it, man. I want to do something. I want to put together Premier Live Radio, which was going to be a podcast, right? And I want to take 3 personalities, and I want to establish like our own radio show and control the playlist and start bringing in artists to interview. The artists that we were booking, we wanted to run the interviews to us, and we wanted to bring our own base. I tried to do that at the beginning of 2018, and I just didn't feel it. I didn't want to do it. I knew that I was going to be really phone-in heavy. I knew that a lot of my interviews, I wasn't thinking Zoom at the time. I was thinking, man, we're just going to have a bunch of call-ins. So I ended up not doing it, gave a few more publications, a few more interviews, and it just got to that point where, man, every chance that these guys, the publications, whether it be local media, radio, whoever, man, anytime they got a chance to bring it back, they did it. They would give it to somebody else. They would give the accolades and the awards to other promoters and other promotional groups. And I'm thinking in my head, like, those guys have never given you any substantial content, but yet we're giving you this content that's driving more viewers, more users, more online hits to your site or whatever the case may be. So I just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And I jumped into doing my own podcast in April of last year. And what ultimately was the result of that was I had a friend of mine who's based out of Houston. His name's Vaz. He had been running his podcast since the beginning of 2018. I was actually his first interview. And he's a good guy, man. I got nothing but love and respect for him. But Busy Bones manager at the time had reached out to me and said, hey, man, we need to get some media interviews for Busy Bone and Bone Thugs and Harmony. Do you know anybody? And I was already on some, like, I'm not giving anybody no interview shit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I still tried. I put in a few fillers out there. I didn't get anybody to respond. And what ended up coming out of that whole entire situation was I reached out to J-Vaz and I said, hey, I could get you this Busy Bone interview. I reached out to Busy Bone's manager. I told Busy Bone's manager, like, hey, I could go ahead and I can get you an interview with this emerging podcast out of Texas. Let's do it. I called J-Vaz and J-Vaz was like, man, I don't really know a lot about Busy. Like, I would need help. Can you help me? I said, man, I got you. Because I wanted him to get the interview. So I constructed the interview, came up with the questions. I ended up co-hosting the episode with him. And for the most part, I was, I kind of talked to J-Vaz, like, let's kind of bounce back and forth, kind of produce the show together. But when it was all said and done, it was predominantly me. So when I heard the interview back, I was like, man, like, I got love for my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing but respect for him, but like, I can't give anybody this content away no more. Like, I've done it for so long. And so that was it. And from that point forward, I started doing my own interviews, started doing my own phoners. And I think anybody that starts in podcasting has to develop a rhythm, you know what I'm saying? Because I had really become really engulfed with podcasting from hearing a lot of Joe Budden's podcasts. And even though they're dope, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So I had did a master class with all of the Joe Budden podcast. I had brought them out here, and they were making like a whole segment of the fact that this master class existed. They have a whole episode dedicated to the master class, or the title of the episode was because of the master class. And that was me that created that, right? And we had went out to eat after the class, and he was really encouraging me to start my own platform. And so probably about a week later, I started it. I had Genuine on, and then from that point forward, it took me about 10 episodes to really kind of get my rhythm. But I got my rhythm, started killing it, and our ratings started going up. It caught the eye of the production team that I'm working with right now, First Time Media. He's like, hey, man, I want to bring your podcast to life. I think, we could do some really cool shit. We could do he was trying to do some FaceTime stuff like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I could bring him in the studio, bro. What are you talking about? and we started producing and filming our first set of episodes in December of last year. We released our first episode in February of this year, and now we're running. We're running, and I think the reason why it's working is because the name of the show is called Nothing Beats Experience, by the way, is because nothing beats experience. Like, truth be told, like, I'm very experienced. I've established a lot of working relationships. I've met a lot of people, and I basically have taken all that wealth of knowledge, all those years of experience, all those resources and all those relationships, and I've applied them. And I kind of feel bad, and I kind of look down and like, man, I wish I would have been doing this so much longer. Like, I wish I would have done this from the beginning. But it's all about timing, bro. I was ready to do it. And I think the reason why you're seeing it click, and the reason you're able to see it mesh so well, and the reason why you see a good, diverse, group of guests is not only because I'm knowledgeable and because I've established those relationships and I'm able to have those conversations, is because, for lack of better words, I've had a lot of practice time. You know what I'm saying? For lack of better words, this has been a project for me that's been in the works since 2015. We're in 2020, and it's now just starting to be put together. I know you reached out to me and you had asked me about the quality of the show, and you were really complimentary of it, which I appreciate. But a lot of people have, reached out to me and told me like, man, your show looks better than the fucking Breakfast Club. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And that was the goal.
Yeah, especially like in this time right now. I guess since you've been doing it since 2015 and kind of putting the pieces to the puzzle together, going back on what you said, the Breakfast Club, their setup looks like, they just picked it up because they had to adapt with the quarantine. But when I see yours, it seems like you've been in quarantine for like a year and you just figured it out. Like there's no signs that you picked it up right now. You know what I'm saying? So the experience is definitely there.
Well, it's probably because I was running phoners for a year, but I actually wanted to get on the Zoom interviews. I wanted to do that almost instantly because I had an interview lined up with Mick Foley, who's a WWE wrestler. He's a legend. He doesn't wrestle anymore.
No, most
We had
definitely.
an interview set up for him for the third week of March, and that happened to be the week that they shut everything down. And I had him, Jay Stone, which is Nipsey Hussle's artist, and I had Little Kiki from Texas. I had them all set up the same week in studio, and we had just did an interview with Cisco Drew Hill. So I was like, man, my February stacked with guests, and they shut everything down. So I tell my production team, I'm like, hey man, I think we need to get the McFoley interview in digitally. And everybody's attitude was like, you know what? Let's just wait to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I waited about a week or two. I think I waited about 2 weeks. I was like, man, fuck that. I'm gonna get on this digital shit. And then I noticed everybody was going digital. But that conversation happened almost instantly. And I've been able to produce, interviews for the most part. Every week I'm producing 2 to 3 high profile interviews, and we're trying to spread them out. You know what I'm saying? But I think right now, especially with what's going on with the quarantine and really with people's attention span, if I drop an interview with somebody, whether it be a Tiger King interview that's like a right now thing, right?
Yeah.
Or if I drop a Royce interview, it's only new right now. With interviews, you can't wait too long. You can't go 3-4 weeks. You know what I'm saying? With having this interview and then putting it out. The interview that we actually started with, which was the Genuine interview, we filmed that in December. It's still not out. I'm like, man, we got to put this out at some time, at some point.
Yeah.
Like we can't be sitting on it this long. It's already 6 months old. But I mean, we're learning as we go. We started the YouTube channel from scratch. I mean, essentially, we started from scratch. It's grown pretty fast. I really believe in what we're doing, and I do believe that a lot of opportunities are going to open up. So, but I mean, again, it's like, you talk about being a promoter and how that's benefited everything. Aside from the guest, man, you got to look at it from the standpoint of, I did an interview with Mikey Garcia. The Zone, Matchroom Boxing allowed me to set up at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility, and we got the okay from the Dallas Cowboys. I filmed the whole entire show in the middle of the field, and that's not common for somebody starting a platform.
No.
But the reason we were able to do that was because I know the lingo of the promoters. Like I know how to make myself an asset. I know how to make myself a benefit to a situation. So if you call me right now, it doesn't matter where you're at, and you're like, hey man, I got the show, I'm promoting it. Or if I see you promoting it, like, yeah, I might put in a media request for your interview, but I'm also going to say, but by the way, I could provide you with XYZ because I have the expertise in the field, and they recognize it almost instantly. So that's kind of how all of that's come about, man. But like the cool thing about it is, I was talking to my engineer, and my engineer Chico was like, "Yo, like, I feel like your profile is increasing right now." And to his point, my social media across the board has gone up. The impressions have gone up. The views, everything, the visits have gone up. I was like, I'm still actively, putting shows together. I had some tours planned prior to all of this happening. The media stuff is just an add-on at this point. But I feel like it's starting to take, a priority, especially right now.
Yeah.
I'm still developing. I'm still creating music. Like I'm still performing. I might not be as active as I was when I was younger, but I'm releasing new music. I'm releasing a new song next week. I was scheduled to perform at a big festival that was supposed to happen this past weekend with some really big artists. Miguel, Kuko, Diplo, Still the Product, Big Crit. I was supposed to be part of that. And I got inducted into the Fort Worth Music Hall of Fame last year. So I think the balance for a lot of people is difficult, and a lot of people feel like you can only do one thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me to you, what I was talking to you earlier on the phone about was like, the best part of what's happening for me right now is that I'm doing whatever I want to do right now, man. I'm literally doing whatever I want to do. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do everything you want to do. Like, I can have a show that talks about boxing, pro wrestling, and music, and then able to cross promote with each other because I'm connecting people together. Like I mentioned to you, I connected the guy from the Tiger King to Chris Jericho, and he was on TV tonight. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's pretty cool, man. I connected, Virgil Ortiz with Avenged Sevenfold. Like, I'm cross connecting people.
Yeah. People of which would have never gotten together, at least not this fast, if it wasn't for you.
With that, and also people that a lot of people probably wouldn't assume would be connected or associated. You know what I'm saying?
No, because that's the main thing that we were talking about. That people see the end product, and they'll see the Chris Jericho show, but they won't see how it got there. Like, these people never really knew each other. Somebody had to make a couple phone calls. Somebody had to bring the idea to life. And how we were talking about, we give credit to the artist all the time. Like, the artist picked the beat, the artist wrote the hook, the artist wrote the verses, and then they got somebody featured on it. But what you do, or like what we do when we create content, that's the same thing. Like, we're creating an art, especially right now in the time that we're in. Like, well, you're creating content. People are watching these. Like, I've seen the numbers go up from the first day that I watched one of your videos till now. And I found you online during this quarantine. Like, nobody told me, hey, look at this. It was a trending thing. And I'm in Virginia, by the way. So, this ain't like somebody down the street heard about you. This is another coast, all because of trending.
No, I appreciate it. And that's the point, though. But, like, you got to think that's also an accumulation of years and an accumulation of knowing how to, like, maneuver. And I'm big in, because I'm Hispanic, I could talk to the Hispanic community as much as I could talk to the hip hop community. I could talk to the pro wrestling community. I could talk to the boxing community. I could talk to the sports community. Like, I'm pretty knowledgeable in a lot of areas, and I have relationships in a lot of those areas. So it's nothing to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? It just, like you said, like when you're building a situation and you're the one that kind of architects the whole entire situation. Like, it's different. It's a different level of responsibility. It's a different level of, initiative, a different level of thinking. Like, even with music, you know what I'm saying? Like, right now, like, I have a new song that's coming out next week. The consensus amongst the people that I know and the people that have heard the song is that it's going to produce big numbers. I mean, I got some big artists on there from Texas. And if I'm a naysayer, I'm going to be like, well, the only reason it's doing big numbers is because these names are attached to it, right? But what they fail to realize is that the origin of the record came from me. The track, the beat came from me. The concept as a whole came from me. So at what point do I get my credit? I don't really even care to get the credit per se, because I know, but at what point do we tell the world, like, hey, this is my idea? That's a conversation I was having with you, like, because a lot of people will, regardless of whether or not it's intentional or unintentional, they won't give credit to the person that put it together, that pieced it together, that gelled it together. And it's important for us to get our credit, because, to my point earlier, what happens whenever you don't have money to live off of anymore? You live off of credit. One of the biggest things in this world to be able to get into a nicer house, a nicer car, a nicer situation is to have good credit. You know what I'm saying? Like, our lives are based off credit. So give us our credit whenever it's due. That doesn't mean praise us every chance you get, but if I book you for a gig, or if I facilitate a deal, or if I broker a situation, I do want my credit. I feel like I deserve that. And I'm at the point now where if I don't get it, I'm going to take it. I have to. Because if not, people would do the least if you allow them to. And something somebody told me a long time ago is no expectations, no disappointments. You'll get disappointed if you expect from people. But that doesn't defeat the purpose that you shouldn't give me or you the credit for facilitating the situation. You know what I mean? Like, if you hook up Ozuna with Daddy Yankee, for example, and, the song goes on to sell 10 million records or whatever the case may be, yeah, that's cool to say that you did it, but who's going to know it? Somebody has to give you your credit. You know what I mean? Like, and it sucks, because that's the world we live in, man. Like, I've been part of some very unique situations in my lifetime, and I've helped make a lot of stuff happen. And like I said on Twitter, man, a lot of people know, but most people don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have to be the one to say that, man, because, you know, I was talking to an artist at the beginning of last year, and she was telling me how I've always been really adamant about just developing and building my brand. And then I need to, you know, kind of not so much shift my mentality, but be open to not getting as much of the credit. And I'm like, I get what you're trying to say, but my brand is all I got. At the end of the day, that's the only thing I control. You know what I'm saying? If, you know, I say that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, if me and you do a show at House of Blues, we could be, you know, Zoom Productions. Nobody knows who we are. All they know is that House of Blues is bringing out the artist. So House of Blues is the one that gets all the credit at the end of the day, even if we're the promoters bringing in talent. So I say that to say this. Like, I always feel like the job of the promoter is very selfless, and in a lot of ways, it's like we never get the credit that we deserve, and we never will. You know what I'm saying? Like, the way that this works is if the show sells out, the artist gets all the credit. Badass show, you know, he's a draw, he's popular, the artist gets all the praise. But if the show goes bad, man, the promoter didn't know what he was doing.
That's when they bring the promoter up.
Yeah, that's whenever we get our we only get the bad end of the stick. We never get the good end of the stick. You never see or hear of a promoter doing a great job. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like that, you know. So it prepares you for different areas. But I mean, I think in a sense, you know, validation or acceptance, it's not the be all end all, but I think anybody in their right mind that would say that when they do something, they don't want a reaction, you know, for the most part, in my opinion, they're not being truthful, you know, because if we do something, whether it's a show, we want people to attend, we want people to react. We put out a video, you know, we want people to watch it. That's the purpose of it. You know, we want to see people respond and react to what it is that we're doing. And I think it's important for us to put our foot down and let it be known what it is that what we're doing. Not to be braggadocious, not to broadcast it, but at the end of the day, you have to be unapologetic, man. You have to be your biggest fan. And if you yourself aren't your biggest fan and you're not telling the world about what you're doing, nobody else is. You know what I'm saying? So you got to tell your story. And I think that's, to your point earlier, I think that's what I've been able to do over the last few months. And I finally feel like after all these years, man, the puzzle pieces have finally come together. I'm just like, bro, I just don't care no more, man. I'm just doing me. Like, it is what it is, though.
Yeah. And I mean, in the entertainment business, that is the credit. You know, like people want to work with whoever's working with everybody, and people want to work with whoever's packing the show. So if you're not getting the credit, then that can potentially affect your money later on. So you're pretty much fighting for, not for survival, but like you said, for the credit that you need.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's where you have to depend on you have to depend on you. You have to depend on your hard work and whatever it is that you bring to the table. Just be confident. You know, like, there's a reason why I've been able to survive this long and be able to find myself in situations where I'm able not only to connect people, but also to continue to put on shows after all these years, man. There's so many promoters locally and regionally that have completely fallen off the face of the earth, completely. They just quit, whether it's a money issue, whatever the case may be. But there's a reason why, because, you know, for one, I'm passionate. I love what I do. Make no mistake about it. I think you have to want it before anything. But aside from that, credit, you know what I'm saying, maybe not in the form of public affection or whatever the case may be, but, you know, people know, man. People know. And there's, you know what, I didn't realize, probably because I've never been that, but I didn't realize how normal bad business is. You know what I'm saying? Like, how common it is. You know, I've seen it happen to a lot of people that I know. So I just stand I just stand on the fact that I know that I do good business, and that's where the opportunities will come in, and that's when people start calling. And once people kind of see you associated with other credible people, they'll reach out, man, or they'll give you a crack at it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this whole quarantine situation has been pretty unique. And, you know, at this point too, like, I feel every second, every minute, every hour that goes by, every day that goes by that I'm not doing something productive, whether it be Zoom, whether it be running an interview, whether putting out an interview, like I feel like I'm not doing anything. And I don't like that feeling. Right now, I want to be doing as much as possible because from a competitor standpoint, I'm looking at everybody around me that has been either praised or that has stuck their chest out. And, you see a lot of that. Like, I'm the best this, or the other promoters that have had state their claim of them being this or that. I'm looking around and I'm seeing everybody stagnant. Nobody's moving. Nobody's putting out content. So this is a good opportunity to see who can adapt. You know what I'm saying? And I know that I've been able to do so. So, whether that's petty or not, man, that's what drives me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like Kobe Bryant, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't play to be second. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're playing for keeps. You know what I mean? So we're trying to put 81 on the board right now. You know what I mean? And nobody,
I hear you. And I think that's one of the things that people are starting to realize. And I think it's something that you have been doing pretty much for like the last 5-6 years, that if you're not wearing more than one hat, you're not going to survive in the way the industry is changing, especially right now with the quarantine. But, hopefully this ends. But even once this ends, if you're not doing multiple things, you're not going to survive, or you're not going to maximize what's out there. But you've been doing that for so long, like you got an advantage, and you've been pretty much working that muscle unintentionally.
Yeah, man, I think you make a point. Like, wearing multiple hats didn't happen because I wanted it to. It's because I needed it to. I needed to find. I got to a point where when I didn't have a car, I used the internet. I'm talking way, way, way back when I was a teenager. You know what I'm saying? I used my computer. I used what was in front of me. I didn't get booked for shows. I went off and I started booking my own shows. I became a promoter. You know what I'm saying? I had always had money to do graphics, but after a while, I just picked up the trait. You know what I'm saying? My wife was able to, she has a degree in it. I was able to learn a lot from her, and that led for me to get into doing graphics. You know what I'm saying? And then you go from that to the media stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I got tired of the media getting credit and everything. So everything that happened in my life and in my career was a result of me not either having those opportunities or basically just me doing it on my own, like me taking those matters into my own hand. And you do have to wear multiple hats in a lot of cases. If not wear them, at least know how to wear them. You know what I'm saying? Because in order to really inspect what you expect, you have to really know how that works. I can't tell a ball player how to play the game if I've never played the game. It's just they don't respect it as much. You know what I'm saying? So think about it. Like, if you're working a regular job and a supervisor's dictating what you're doing and how to do it, but they've never done it, you're not going to have as much respect for someone that has done it. So I just kind of figured that out right away. But I think in 2020, to be a prominent force, like, you have to know how to do multiple things. Look, man, the definition of a hustler, in my opinion, is multiple streams of income. And they always say the average millionaire has 6-7 sources of income. So my idea going into building my company, Premier Live Experience, was always live entertainment, Premier Live Experience, Premier Live Radio, which was the podcast, Premier Live TV, which was going to be the YouTube channel. We could do media, which would be the graphics and everything. We could then, shift into possible clothing and merchandising. So I've already given you 5 streams of income right there. Then we can act as a booking agency where we book out artists and we broker deals. So that's already 6 streams of income within this web of multimedia. And then we could go search for sponsorships. That's another source of income. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was always the idea. The problem is that I'm only one person. So as much as I could see all these ideas and I could see all these things, I still have to be able to delegate. And when you start delegating, you have to really know who to delegate to, because people start feeling entitled. You give someone a title, or you give somebody a little bit of responsibility. You know how it could get, you know what I'm saying? And everybody wants to start taking credit for your success. And even now, man, I see people that used to work for me, and I'll see them go online, talk about people that they've worked with. And I'm like, you didn't work with them. You worked with me, who happened to work with them. But you're able to say that, whatever, man. If it gives you the profile boost, so be it. But that's a very interesting dynamic, you know what I'm saying? Because you have to really know how to balance that out. But I mean, I think that's that. And going back to your point, you know, that goes to the whole idea of, you know, wearing multiple hats. You know, that's why you have to. You know what I'm saying? You leave less room for error. It always goes back to what people say. You want something done right, do it yourself. I think the real reason why people say that is because if you do it yourself, there's no one else to blame. You know what I'm saying? Like you're the only person that could take that. That's it. So,
and I mean, nobody's gonna work for your stuff better than yourself.
That's true.
You
That's
know,
100% true.
Now I'm gonna shift it a little bit. Like since you've been in the game as promoting and everything for so long, and you've done featuring, like if people, you know, I'm gonna attach some links of some of the videos you've done, but you've done music with a lot of the guests that you have.
Yeah.
So giving advice to like an interviewer, like somebody like myself or someone who wants to start a YouTube channel, like how do you get new guests, somebody that you haven't worked with, or how do you prepare for an interview with somebody that you haven't worked with? Like I know Lil Flip, you guys were pretty much just continuing a conversation because that's like your boy. But how do you prepare with somebody who you haven't worked with?
That interview got so much praise and so much like love, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it was. I thought that it was just gonna do, because that was the second video I had ever uploaded. So I was like, this is only gonna do like 1,000 views. I didn't think it was gonna do a lot of views, right? Not to undersell myself, but I was starting from scratch.
Yeah.
The interview goes on. It's like at 50,000 views right now with like a little over a month. It hasn't been that long, you know. And me and him hadn't talked directly in a very long time. Like we had, but we hadn't. But you could tell instantly from watching it that we had history. And I wanted to attack the interview as such. To be honest with you, I never rehearsed my interviews. I'm doing an interview with Crooked that you're going to see on Friday. That interview in specific, you know, we go in depth about the art of interviewing. I tell him that I never really practice. I might have bullet points up here that I know that I want to hit, but for the most part, I freestyle it. I like to have it to be, you know, because I don't really like to do I don't like to do interviews. I like to have conversations.
For sure.
And I think that's what's going to make anybody's content when it comes to this type of platform, you know, in my opinion, at least, it makes it more, you know, authentic when you're conversational. But I would say that the best piece of advice I could give anybody to get someone that they don't know, because I have been able to do a little bit of that, is whenever you compose your email and you put it in your media inquiry, hit all your bullet points. I just put a one sheet together that I'm sending out to people. I sent it out to 15 media outlets last night. I haven't got a response yet from any of them yet, but I just know I know what a lot of people like to see. They like to basically see the basic, who you are, what you've done, and how you could benefit them. That's really kind of what it breaks down to, right? So if you tell them, well, this is how I can benefit you, my numbers are out the roof, or whatever the case may be, whether that's social media, on Instagram, on Twitter, whatever, right? YouTube, you know, just give them a reason. You know, tell them about your show and tell them who you've interviewed. Tell them some of the people that you've worked with. You don't even have to tell them you've interviewed them. Like, hey, man, I've worked with Ozuna. I've worked with so-and-so. These are big names. These aren't little names. You know what I mean? Like, and we have to do better of taking these brands that we've worked with and finding a way to like implement it in what it is that we're doing. Because for the longest time, I'm doing all these great things, but I'm not telling anybody that I'm working with these people. You know what I'm saying? Not because I was like, oh, well, I don't want people to look at me like I'm reaching or I'm cloud chasing, but it's not cloud chasing. It's the truth. It's your reality. It's your resume. Like if you go on and you work at a job for 5 years, what are you going to do? Not put it on your resume? Like, come on, man, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
That's the point of having that. That's the reason why you get to that point. Like, who cares what anybody thinks? You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, like that's just the worst way to approach it, the worst way to think about it. But that's what I would recommend, because for me, whenever I go into an interview, like for example, Life Jennings, you know, I interviewed him I didn't know as much about him, so I had a friend co-host that show with me. But I try to kind of go and steer in the direction of more of what I know. You know what I'm saying? Like more of what I know, more of what I'm familiar with, because I feel it comes off a lot more natural. You go watch the interview I had with Tessa Blanchard. You watch the interview I did with Virgil Ortiz. Like you could tell that I knew them, and I think they were surprised how much I knew them. You know what I'm saying? And the interview with Royce, it was different. You know, the interview with Royce, the interview with Crook, the interview I'm putting out tonight with AB Quintanilla, like those are different because I know these guys. So I'm able to kind of go in and I go, okay, you know what? The likelihood is I don't even need to watch their interviews. All their interviews are the same. Everybody's going to ask them the same question. Let me ask them something different. Let me ask them about how to balance, you know, a professional life and a personal life. Let me ask them about what it is to be a father and, you know, all this thing. Like, let's go there. You know what I mean? Rather than do what everybody else is doing. And so that's what I would, you know, that's what I would say for sure.
Yeah, because I did see the interview, a little clip you posted about the AB Quintanilla one, and you, I don't know how you led up to it, but he was really getting personal there about his situation and a lot of the things that they probably would only talk with Oprah, you know. But you hit it right in the head, and then he just started telling you about, and I'm not gonna get into it so people can, you know, watch the interview, but
You can. I mean, he was talking about being having bipolar disorder and being depressed and how he dealt with his sister's passing. You know what I mean? Like, and he talked about social anxiety. He talked about a lot of personal stuff about his dad, just the pressure, that pressure. And I think the way I was able to pull it from him was because I had had a few conversations with him prior. And anytime I've ever had a conversation with him, I've always kind of reminded him, like, hey, bro, like, you're a genius. You know, you're a musical genius in your own right. And I've never treated him like he was just Selena's brother. So I think when we had the conversation, it just led up to that point. And it just progressed. And he actually said it in the interview. But I'm probably going to have the trailer cut up tonight. It'll probably be up tomorrow. But in the interview, he says, I have opened up to you more than I've ever opened up to anybody else. You know, maybe it was the quarantine, whatever it was, whatever it wasn't. I feel so strong about that interview because you know when somebody needs that. You know when somebody has to have that conversation. Whatever it was built up in his life or his career, he let it out, man. And, you know, this goes back to something that I didn't even correlate with. You know, whenever I was younger, my mom, she would always say, you know, I want you to be a parole officer when you grow up, because I was a troublemaker. And when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a youth counselor before I got into music. So I've always been really good at, you know, talking to people, giving people advice, you know, and I would like to believe that people get comfortable with me and are able to open up to me. So he opened up, and yeah, man, I thought it was really dope. Like to your point, like that is the type of conversation I have with a more established platform. But to be able to get those interviews on this level is good, man. You know what I'm saying? I just did an interview with Baby Bash, did an interview with Paul Wall. I feel like both of those interviews were similar in the sense that we went to places that the other interviews didn't go, you know, at least the typical interviews. Because that's the thing about it, like as an interviewer or as a media platform, we have a responsibility to the people that we're working with. You know what I'm saying? To the artists that give us their time, or the guests that are giving our time, to not only give them the best possible interview, but also give the public the most entertaining content. Like, I don't feel good if I give an interview with somebody and it's the same questions that everybody else asks. Like, I would feel like, man, that ain't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would feel like I just copied somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you lack originality in that sense. You know what I'm saying? So I just try my hardest to kind of go places that nobody else has gone. And, you know, whether that's me knowing personal stuff or whatever, but you know, it just comes out, bro. It's natural, man. It was natural. It was a good interview. That actually, believe it or not, out of all the interviews I've done, It's probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite, because I didn't expect it to go there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like, oh shit, like this was good. You know what I mean? Like, this was really good. So,
and that's how you know you did something, when it shocks you that you're supposed to go in there prepared. You know, like you feel like you're ready for it, and it shocks you. And that's how you create timeless content. You know, that right there becomes part of history.
you know what? I'll say this too, man. You know, a lot of times we get caught up in chasing these numbers on YouTube. Like, none of my interviews have 100,000 views yet. And maybe in a year, whenever we watch this interview back, every interview I did is at 1 million views. I believe that we have the potential, and I definitely believe in the content enough to get there, right? But like, I don't want to define a lot of these interviews by numbers, because I feel like a lot of these interviews that I'm creating, whether people discover it today, tomorrow, next month, next year, when they discover it, they're gonna appreciate it. And like, yo, have you seen this interview? Did you see what they were talking about? Like, there's not enough of that anymore, man. Like, we want to get different sides of whoever it is that we're working with or alongside. So it's pretty cool, man. Like I said, I mean, I've definitely become more and more passionate about what it is that I'm doing. And I don't really necessarily feel that I'm doing it like everybody else, because I feel like everybody else has like a certain style. Like, people are real clickbait friendly.
Yeah.
You mentioned Vlad. You know, Vlad is the king of clickbait. You know, that's,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it's all shock value. Like, you know, oh man, Snoop Dogg slaps fucking Dr. Dre, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 25. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
bro.
That's facts right there. And a lot of people do that. And I feel like that's how you can lose a potential audience member, because the clickbait tends to disappoint a lot of the time.
Well, it's not only that, but it's also another part of it is like, is that what you want to be known for? Like, is that what you want people to see you as? You know, for me, that's not what I want people to see me as, bro. I want people to see me as a credible source. Here's the reality. A lot of people, and it's not to take anything away from that, because he's a massively successful interviewer. I was very vocal about Drink Champs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had saw my interview with Lil Flip next to the interview that Drink Champs did with Lil Flip. I don't care who it is. Put both of those interviews in front of 10 people and tell me which interview was better. Mine was better 100 times over, in my opinion. And a lot of people agree with that. Not only from the quality, not even the interview, just the interview. I'm talking about the actual audio, the video, everything in my opinion was better. And then I went on and I saw an interview that Drink Champs did with Floyd, and I didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good interview. And I posted about it, and everybody said, oh, you're hating. And I wasn't, because I actually liked their show a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, they just do something different. You know, they just do something different. Like, they're on TV, but my goal is to not only be on TV. My goal is with my platform to eventually transcend, whether it be Netflix, whether it be YouTube, whether it be national TV. Like, I want to get to a point where people are confident that I could interview Barack Obama the same way I could interview Mark Cuban, the same way I can interview, you know, Dr. Dre, the same way I could interview Eminem, the same way I could interview Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao. Like, I'm knowledgeable enough to adapt to all those situations. And I don't feel that there's a lot of people that know how to do that. And what's really cool about all this is a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my peers, a lot of the people that I've booked, a lot of people that I've worked with, they had no idea that I could do this. You know what I mean? So, like, they're like, what the fuck? You're actually good at this. I'm like, You know what I mean? So it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of years in the promoting business tends to do that to you too, though. You get good at talking with people.
Yeah, man. I mean, and that's the way we do it. You know what I'm saying? So,
like, what advice would you give to somebody trying to start a podcast or a platform like this, that what we're doing right now? Because a lot of people, I feel like, are thinking about this, especially now with the quarantine situation.
Man, I would say don't hesitate. Don't think twice. Do it. Either put up or shut up. You know what I'm saying? I hate to say it that way, but that's what it comes down to. Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. You know what they say, right? You know, you're either going to be a go-getter or you're going to watch the go-getters. You know, I think a lot of the times with what's going on, man, is like I've had people ask me for advice. I've given advice. And truth be told, a lot of people don't apply the advice. So it's hard to give people advice because I'm in the belief of you're not right. I'm not right. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. Your perspective is yours. My perspective is mine. And just based on how you see it, that's going to be how you interpret things, right? I've had people ask me, you know, how do you do it? What would you do? And I'll tell them, and then it disappoints me when I don't see them apply some of that stuff. So your reality is your reality. Your journey is your journey. I think when it comes to this, the only thing I could tell anybody is just go after it. Just do it. Look, man, you don't know what it could lead to. I never in my wildest dreams thought in 2015, whenever I started formulating the idea, whenever I finally started in 2016, that one day I was going to be the personality. Because I never wanted to do the overkill thing, man. And it happened. And now that it happened, man, it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, man. Honestly, you know, I'm excited. I look forward to having conversations with people. You know, there's certain things that are very rewarding in life. You know what I'm saying? Whenever whenever you record a good song and everybody tells you that it's a great song, it's a great feeling. When you put on a great event, everybody seems to enjoy the night. Everybody's hugging you and patting you on the back, telling you, man, you're the man. It's a badass show. It's a great feeling. But man, there's something about when I do these interviews and I'm having these conversations and these artists go, this is a good interview. Man, that was a good interview. I've had people, look, I interviewed Kelly Pavlik. When I interviewed Kelly Pavlik, pro boxer, he had just did an interview with Joe Rogan probably a few months prior. Tells me after the interview, this interview was just as good as Joe Rogan's. Joe Rogan's been doing this shit for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Whether or not he's telling me that to make me feel good about myself, that's on him, but that's what he's telling me. AB, you know, he's opening up to me, man. You brought out a side of me that no one's been able to bring out of me, man. Like, you know, he ends the interview talking about how sensational my show is. Then you have someone like, who was it? It wasn't Royce, Baby Bash. Matter of fact, I interviewed Baby Bash, and Bash is like, man, bro, like, this is a good interview. Like, when you hear those things, it's like, damn, that's rewarding. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. So you don't know if you're ever going to get that reaction or not unless you actually do it. And it shouldn't be all predicated and based off of you doing interviews that it require a guest. Like, that's my platform. That was what I chose to do, right? But you could do a podcast about shoes. You could do a podcast about, you know, cars. You could do a podcast about whatever it is that you want to do. Just go after it, do it, because otherwise you're gonna just wonder what could happen. Like, shit, this might be your calling and you don't even know it. You know what I mean?
And there's no better time than right now, especially with the way things are, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. But yeah, that's what I would definitely recommend, man. I mean, like I said, like, I did it, changed my life, and I've been excited, man. Like, I at times it's a little frustrating because just like anybody else, like, I have trouble getting guests. Like, you know, I just told you I put in 13 requests. You know what I'm saying? I haven't got one response, but you know, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So eventually something's gonna stick. You know what I mean? Like, and you start meeting people, bro. Like I said, you meet people, like, one person leads to another person, that leads to another person. You do a favor for one person, and, you know, hey, can you bring so and so on? I got you. So just network, man.
Well, just let the viewers know where they can find you, and I'm gonna attach the links as well.
Man, I appreciate it, man. So my personal is at Smooth Vega. That's SMOOTHVEGA. SmoothVega.com is my website. My company website is PremierLiveExperience.com. The YouTube channel is actually YouTube.com/PremierLiveExperience. But we purchased the domain. The name of the show is Nothing Beats Experience. You can go to nothingbeatsexperience.com. Look up Nothing Beats Experience on YouTube, or just type in Premier Live TV. That's how you find it. And hopefully by the time you air this, I'm not sure when you're going to air it, but whenever you do air it, you'll have a lot more interviews to kind of dig through. But I would highly recommend anybody that goes to the catalog to try to watch, if not all of them, you know, watch the ones that seem interesting to you, because there's some really good ones in there. And even the ones that you might not be as familiar with, like, you might not know who the female wrestler is, you might not know who that person may be, like, watch it. Like, we tell the story, you know what I mean? And when we tell the story, that allows people to become not only familiar with the athlete or the artist or the person that we're talking to, it also lets you become acquainted and familiar with the story. So that's where you find it, man.
For sure. So that was Ekspoze. We out.